Okay, for watercolor, you want to get your whole station set up. I have a piece of watercolor paper that has been taped into my sketchbook, and I'm just using half of a page in my sketchbook. So for the other half, I'm just going to lay a paper towel, and you want to use an absorbent paper towel, not the brown paper towels that typically are in the classroom. And then you want to get your 3 primary colors. So I'm going to get lemon yellow, Prussian blue, where are you? Prussian blue, and then vermilion. So there's a couple different reds that usually come in a pack. The crimson is just going to be a darker red. I want to use this brighter red, so I'm going to use vermilion. For yellow, there's usually different yellows that come in a watercolor pack, and the yellow ochre is just a little more brown, so I want to use that brighter yellow. All right, so I got my 3 colors. And then for your watercolor palette, it doesn't matter. You guys can use the rectangular one or the circular one. They both work. And then for paintbrushes, you just want, typically the short brushes are watercolor brushes, and you want bristles that are soft. You don't want hard bristles that aren't going to move easily. This sort of brush is called a mop brush, and when I get the paper wet, because we're going to do wet on wet, I'm going to use a mop brush just to lay down the water. So if there is a mop brush, those are good to have. All right, so to set up my paint palette, you just need a little smidget of each color. Right, that's not a lot, maybe a dab. Dab of vermilion red. Skip 1. Do a dab of lemon yellow. Skip 1. Dab of your Prussian blue. Prussian blue, Prussian. Okay, yellow, red. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mop brush. And again, we're going to do a technique called wet on wet, where we're going to be painting into the wet watercolor. So it gets more of the watercolor bleeding effect. If things go where we don't want them to go, the paper towel is going to be used to blot. So you got to have this ready, because if you go try to find a paper towel, your watercolor is probably going to be drying on the paper. All right, so let's see, maybe zoom out. I want to get my mop brush, right? And then get this really wet. I'm going to go circular because I'm making a color wheel. So that's now wet. Actually, I'm done with my mop brush. All right, I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is yellow. So I'm going to get a little bit of my yellow, put it on my left, or it doesn't really matter. Think of breaking this into thirds, right? Yellow, red, blue. Wash it. And when you wash your brush, you kind of want to tap. Make sure you're tapping the bottom. Don't just dip it in the water. Now I'm going to get some of that red water. So I'm not going in all of that. I'm just getting a little tiny section. So leave space. Now I'm going to go red. You can see it's starting to bleed out, which is great. Clean it. Then get a little bit of that blue. Okay. Now, you want to try to blend those colors together. So I'm going to get some red, get some blue. Red and blue together. Whoops, I should not have done that there. Back up. Beep, beep. Blotting. In between red and yellow should be orange. Not bad. All right, let's go here. Get some red. Get some blue. Mix it together. Purple. Now, I want to try to get that to blend. So I'm going to wet my brush. try to just add water in between those two. Okay, I want that purple to blend into my red and into my blue. Okay, now in between the red and the yellow, use your lighter color first. It's going to be the best color, in my opinion, which is orange. Okay, so it's going to go between the red and the yellow. So you want to paint your orange. Now I want this to bleed. So now go back with water. Clean it, water. Now yellow and blue is going to be what? Green. Wash it, blend it, wash it, blend it. Get those colors to bleed into each other. Okay, so when this dries, you should get some of that bleeding effect. And then we're also going to add maybe another layer on top of this because it's very light and watery and transparent right now. All right, to be continued when it dries. All right, so I'm going to write down what I did first. By the way, I dried this, so it's a little bumpy right now. So I did wet on wet. So that was watercolor on wet paper. Okay, so that was the technique that I just did, wet on wet. Now we're gonna try wet watercolor on dry, just to see the difference. All right, so let's get set up here. I need my paper towel. Have that ready on hand. Got my color wheel right here and my paintbrush. So start with a clean paintbrush. Oh gosh, try to get some yellow. And then just paint your yellow watercolor right on top. Again, try to get that to blend in. Nice. All right, let's go to the next lightest, which is orange. I don't have to clean it because I don't mind having yellow on my brush. Just gonna dip it in. Dip that in. Get some orange. Go right in there. But again, I need that to blend. Let's try going back to my yellow. Blend it back in. I can also wash. Use that water to try to blend that in. Trying to get a gradual blend of colors. So now I'm going to go orange into my red. And I'll wash it. Get some red. Go right on top of that last orange. Get more red. Keep carrying that over. Okay, still want to blend that a little bit more. I'm going to get some water. Try to use that water to blend it. Okay, now I got to go into that purple. Where did I have it? Oh, right here. Get some blue. More red. So kind of overlap with that last color, which was red. And then start to pull it over towards that blue. So you can tell it's now getting a little more vibrant. So watercolor works really well in layers. I'm going to clean, get some blue, overlap on top of that purple. Clean my brush, get some water, try to blend that back into the purple. Last one is green. Go over the green, blend it with the blue. Back into the green. Gonna try to blend that with the yellow. So I'm gonna get more yellow on my brush. Use that yellow to blend. Yellow. All right, now I'm gonna let that dry. If you wanna do a little splattering on there, watercolor should work well for that. Can have some of that yellow coming out. See if I can get some of that purple to come out. So get a wet brush, maybe get the end of that blue, give it like a little canal, little pathway to travel. Let's get some of that orange, it's my favorite. So get a little canal, little pathway, get orange on there, then it should kind of flow through that channel you just allowed it. Okay, so you guys can experiment with having water, letting some of that watercolor kind of flow out. Let's do the same thing with the green. Give it a little escape route, right? Put some color on the edge of your color wheel, and it should start to flow out through that channel you just gave it. So you can have a hard edge, like this is a hard edge right here, right? So it's a very straight line, or you can soften it by using water, kind of bleed that out. Right, I'm gonna keep going. Get some of that red flow. All right, last is your paint palette needs to be washed out. This will dry just like that, and you can actually take water and then re-wet it once it's dry, or you can wash it out now and have fresh watercolor. That's why we only get a tiny little dab, so we don't waste a lot. We gotta finish labeling. So the second step we did was wet on dry, right? We just put watercolor, put WC on dry paper, and then we also did layering, which is layering, right? We layered a layer of watercolor on top of watercolor. We also softened some of the lines. We did bleeding, which is allowing the watercolor to flow out. Done.